orbiting our Earth?
Yeah. And it goes the opposite way of all of our satellites.
All right, yeah, you gotta
Hold on. You did bring that up when you were really tripping. Say that there's 2 babies on Earth.
That can't really be the case.
Why can't it? I'm not saying that.
So you're just saying there's 2 babies.
There's 2 babies.
Wait a god minute. Like, wait, there's some holes here.
There's a lot of trial and error.
All right, so I think about a lot of random things, and I write them down. And I was like, okay, this might be interesting to dive into. And I was trying to think, what was it like to be the first baby on Earth? Because, so let's hypothesize. Naturally, you couldn't just have one baby, right? You got to have 2 babies. You got to have a male and a female of some sort so they can procreate.
Yeah.
So that's number 1, okay? Let's forget about how they got here.
Wait, so are we saying that Adam and Eve didn't have the first baby?
I'm just saying, let's Adam and Eve had to have come somewhere, and that's why I want to ignore the religious side of things. Let's just say there's 2 babies on Earth.
Okay.
Okay? Now, for them to get from there to where we are today, a lot had to have happened. So I want to hypothesize, how did that happen? From 2 babies into, larger populations. Because kids, for the first couple of years of their lives, all they're trying to do is essentially kill themselves, right?
Yeah.
They don't know what's happening. So how did this actually happen?
Yeah.
Because, and how many babies did we have to go through to get a larger population, right?
Well, yeah.
Because,
that's a good question. And there's some real thought processes there. So you have to understand. So first, you're almost doing like the chicken or the egg thing, where, what came first.
But let's just, like I said, let's just say that there's 2 babies on Earth.
Well, yeah, but if you say that, that can't really be the case.
Why can't it?
Well, so
you weren't back there. Nobody can.
So
tell
I don't
you.
think. Yeah, no, you're right. I can't say for
That's
certain, but there's
I guess
probably
the first
2 ways
living
to.
thing ever. It's evolution.
Well, yeah. So, and it's not like it would have been. So if you're going from an evolutionary thing, you'd have essentially like Neanderthals and these other humanoids.
But this is way before that. So that's why I'm saying.
So you're thinking like the first chimpanzee that started to evolve to a human. The reality is that probably the chimpanzee would have taken care of said baby.
I'm not saying that.
So you're just saying there's 2 babies.
There's 2 babies.
Okay. Yeah. If that's the case,
I want to hypothesize on how this
they'd
will
have
work.
to then survive their childhood, which would be a disaster because essentially, babies are just looking to kill themselves at every moment of the day.
Yes. Quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, Fully Loaded Tobacco-Free Chew. Check out the description of this video or the show notes to get 20% off your next order.
And they'd be super susceptible to predators, things of that nature. Other apex predators would be a big fat problem for them. Then you start to get into the question of, okay, let's just say that these babies then survive to a breeding age, which is young.
What is
it's
it for?
14 or something.
Okay.
So they're basically, essentially, once you have menstrual cycle as a female, and with boys, I mean, as soon as you can produce it. So yeah, it might even be younger than 14, but okay, let's just say 14 for the sake of argument. Then you got to ask, all right, then now, were these babies related? Because if they were related, then they're going to start to have the same genetic code, or at least highly similar genetic codes, and then they're going to have a baby that then is going to have some of the problems we have now.
Can it eventually get bred out, though? That's the question, right? To where they continue to have children with each other, and then those babies have kids with other individuals, and it grows to where, you're going to have some jacked up
There's going to be some
children.
genetic drift. The more people you have, because that's the other thing with genetics. It's not like it's fixed. So with epigenetics and things, like experiences are kind of imprinted on the DNA. So you could have one group that did go away and, 8 generations down the road, and then they ended up meeting with these, and then you could have different genetics. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe maybe the babies were like insanely brilliant and were like way beyond our understanding, like way smarter than us, and we're just like their inbred loser offspring. Like maybe they were essentially gods. They were so much smarter than us, but they happened to inbreed so much that we then are now just like the blue babies in Kentucky. Like that's us. We're just like the moronic inbred loser offspring of these brilliant beings.
Brilliant babies that existed hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Yeah, maybe their genetics were superior to ours. Dramatically, we just have like their crappy ones.
Okay, so you were going to go back and you were going to say that like chimps slowly progressed into humans.
I mean, that's the evolutionary theory.
but even those chimps, there had to have been like 2 that started.
Right.
So so let's go with the chimp thing. It's the same idea. They don't know what the
Or
heck
you could
they're
do
doing.
ants. You
Yeah,
could
but
do a
here-
lion.
No,
you
but
could do
let's talk about humans.
From an
then. Forget about the
evolutionary
animals.
standpoint, you could make the argument that it's gradual, so that their parents, it's not like so. The chimps came from let's just say a lemur. I don't really know the whole genetic line, but let's just say they came from a lemur. It's not like the lemur one day just spit out a chimp.
I know.
So, it'd be like a lemur that was a little bit more like a chimp, and then like that chimp had sex with another lemur that was a little bit more like a chimp, and then like over a long time they would get there. And yeah, I mean, honestly,
how many deaths had
so many.
there had to have been so many deaths at the very beginning because they have to learn not to kill themselves. They have to learn to, I don't know, cut the damn umbilical cord so you don't have a baby hanging from you.
There's a lot
just
of
the
trial
little
and error.
stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
Nuts. And
it is nuts.
there had to have been so many of them that just died off.
Yeah.
Because it's all trial and error trying to figure out how do we raise this kid? How do we raise ourselves? We don't even know what the hell we're doing.
No, I studied evolution in college. I mean, and the further you think about it, the more you're like, wait a goddamn minute. Like, wait, there's some holes here. Like,
what's happening?
yeah, like you could, because even with DNA, like you can see the remnants of these things, but like we think of DNA as like this building block. What if DNA is a computer code that somebody wrote and then programmed it into all the animals, and it just happens to look similar? And we're just running on this computer code, and it bred life into us, and that's it now. Like, there's so many holes
There
in
is.
evolution. And you could talk to an evolutionary biologist, and they would tell you there's not. But some of it doesn't make any dang sense.
It doesn't
Like,
make any sense.
That's a good point. Like, when you think about a baby, and I get it. It was
Yeah.
more gradual than that. But, like, you start to think about it, yeah, how on earth did they ever get to a point where they had such a proliferation of humans with dramatically different traits and this and that? Like, it is crazy. It's crazy.
Because so many of them, I mean, there had to have just been 1 or 2 lucky ones throughout each lineage that would have had to have survived and slowly progressed. Like, okay, we just lost 20 people because we cut the umbilical cord off wrong.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's
Infection, childhood disease. They're not in homes at that point.
yeah.
So, I mean, the predation had to be crazy.
Like you said, not getting eaten by animals.
Yeah.
Like predators.
This could go so many different directions.
Take it wherever you want.
So you brought up, because I brought it up yesterday, what do you guys think the likelihood is that this is all just like code and we are just a simulation?
I think, yeah, in that idea of a simulation, when you hear those guys talk about it, and you think like, they're also guys that are usually that are into this or like in the tech industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like they're seeing it through their
Lens.
yeah, like their lens is,
Because we're all programmed to think a specific way. And
well, yeah, their lens is computers. So what do? Instead of saying it's a spiritual thing, like there's a god, they're saying it's a person or a being in another place simulating it. Like, is that any different?
Yeah.
Is the simulation any different than God? They're just putting it into their lens. Their lens is
God
computers.
would be the one that kind of
is controlling
sparked,
it.
Yeah.
That sparked the whole thing.
So when you create a new chip that's going to be XYZ in a computer program, then there's computer programs within that computer program, and it's like, when I watched that one episode, I was like, damn, that's a good point. Because there's so many different ways. We talk about the Big Bang Theory. It's like, all right, well, where'd the Big Bang come from? And it's like, was it just somebody like putting that chip together, and poof, here we are, and we're all just programmed to think and like understand what we were kind of coded to think and understand. But then over the course of time, like with artificial intelligence kind of like is teaching itself. And then there's theories that artificial intelligence could get so smart to be like, the only thing that could kill us, meaning artificial intelligence, is the humans that created us. So artificial intelligence will get so smart that it'll just eliminate us.
Kill us.
You just described the plot of Terminator.
Was that really?
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah, that's the plot of Terminator.
I guess I haven't seen that movie in forever either.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the plot of Terminator. Skynet. Skynet kills all the humans.
Which they say it's Google, right? Isn't that what they said for Google is Skynet?
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. A lot of the science fiction's coming true. 1984 is basically true now.
In Minority Report.
Minority Report's an interesting one.
It is.
And that one, the way that they, basically committing a crime, stopping you from doing it, they're like trying to do that.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're doing like the behavior stuff, and it's weird. But yeah, back to that, the idea of a simulation, I don't think it's incongruent with religions of the world. I just think it's another way of describing something that we can't really wrap our brains around. It's like everyone's looking for an answer. Everyone looks for the answer of where do we come from? Why are we here? And it's like science can't really answer it. Because you go back to like we're talking about the Big Bang. Like you go back to that and like, okay, we were in this infinitesimally small thing and then it exploded into the galaxy. Okay. Where did that come from? Like you could answer any one of these questions, and there's just going to be a question before that we're never going to have the answer to. And whenever we get it, one step further is going to be another question that we will not have the answer to. So it's like everyone thinks, that they know, but I don't think anyone knows. And I think that we all kind of come to this idea over time of there's something else out there that we don't understand. And
then people call it different things, right? Like
right.
God,
they just have a different label for it.
Yeah, yeah.
The simulation, God, science. Science is some people's religion. They want it to all be through evolution, and they want it to all. But then,
that's so fun
whether you're at the end of science or you're at the end of religion, there's some amount of it where you have to just accept, like, I don't have the answer. I don't know the answer.
Blind faith.
You have
to an extent.
You have to. There's no end of the science. Like, you can't ever get there. And there's no end of a religion. It's not that laid out. Unfortunately, the reality is we just don't know. Like, we don't know.
We're constantly guessing, and even those guesses are going to be incorrect. But if we consider those guesses as fact, and we base more guesses off of those things,
no, you get into a spiral, and then you can't. I think there's just a lot of we don't know.
So okay,
we may never know.
And so here's something going along those lines. Then, a lot of people operate on the past, so we'll call it nostalgia, or the unknown, which is the future. So nostalgia and the unknown, and we can't get answers to either of those things, right? Because we can't for certain say what happened in the past, or that we should necessarily be focusing on the past. So, things that have gone on in our lives where we're like, okay, that's nostalgic. Like, you think back to the past, and it's like, okay, what already happened? And then some people get caught up in the future, which is the unknown. And I don't think either of those things matter. I think what the most important thing to focus on is like the here and now. But we get so caught up in the future, the unknown, in the past, which is nostalgia. All of those things are going to take care of themselves based on what's happening right now. Like, you guys are thinking, okay, after this, I got to go to work. I got to go do this, do that. So you're like living in the future and the unknown. But really all that matters is right now. Yeah. Because right now is the unknown, and it is also nostalgia, the past.
Yeah. Well, even animals do that. Even animals do that, though. You think about it, like a squirrel with that little brain is thinking about the future. It's packing away nuts for the winter. It's doing things, and it's almost, I don't know if it's actively thinking about it or if that's just what a squirrel does.
Well, or was it programmed to think that way?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know. Like I don't know. And like, what are instincts? These instincts that we have, and there's so many ideas and feelings and voices in our head and all of that. Like, does a squirrel have that? Does a squirrel have an inner monologue? Does it have, oh man, I got to go get more nuts today, or whatever language a squirrel speaks? Like, do they have that? I don't know.
They do squirrel away a bunch of
and
stuff.
You couldn't prove that. It's not like you could prove, like, oh, a squirrel doesn't have an inner monologue. Like, maybe it does. You can't read a squirrel's brain. There's no science to do that.
Yeah, when you are driving down the road and it doesn't know which way to go. Do I go right? Do I go left?
It's thinking. It's thinking.
There's some code in there working.
It has a
What
brain.
do you guys think about deja vu?
Deja vu's weird. It is weird. I mean, The Matrix, the movies, they explain it like a glitch in The Matrix. In that, I mean, Matrix is basically like, that's the simulation, right?
Yeah, I think you watch more of those movies, so explain.
Yeah, no, The Matrix, basically, people are essentially trapped in a VR world. And the VR world is just code. And
Yeah, they get hooked
it's
up.
It's a
So
simulation.
they're creating their own like new worlds in that world, but if there's a glitch in the code, then like they could.
What's
like,
the say? Basically, machines have taken over the world, and they use humans as batteries, and to keep them happy as their little batteries, they just plug them into a VR
Oh my
world.
God, that's today. Like we're living.
Oh yeah, we're not far.
we
I
are
think
like
we're 10 years
we
away.
are like God. We are the batteries.
Yeah,
Because like this technology doesn't exist without us
none of it.
recharging it, sitting on our phones, like
Yeah.
dicking around with.
It only
God, we
exists
have to-
because of us. We are the only reason that AI exists. We're the only way that it can exist currently.
But couldn't you say that we are the I mean, but that's a good analogy. We are the batteries for everything, though, right? So we're always thinking about it in a negative sense, like technology, but we are the batteries to even positivity in the world or love in the world. It's like, okay, if you want that outcome, you do technically need to be the battery for that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah, you got to drive it.
Yes, because if you want to live in like a dark place your whole life and you want to feed that, yeah, you can be the battery for that negativity in your life and other people's lives. So, I mean,
No, we have the capability to do amazing things. We have the capability to do horrific things. And it's really up to us. We're allowed to pick what we want.
God, it reminds me of. I don't want to go too deep into it, but when we were doing mushrooms, you and me were doing mushrooms the other day. But that point, you did bring that up when you were really tripping. We're not going to go too deep into it, but you made a good point. You were like, everyone kind of just gets to decide every day, like good or like, am I going to
Every
do
day.
something good or evil? And we started to bring up like Hitler, and it's like, did that guy actually think that he was doing something good at some point, right? Even though to everybody else, it's like, no, that's evil. And you got to the point, and it made sense. It's like, yeah, we all get to choose every single day, good or evil. And it's like, what do I
And
want
every
to do?
day you get to make a new decision. I mean, like Hitler's an extreme example, but even Adolf Hitler, like 850 days into the war campaign, when he woke up that day, he had the option of saying, today I'm going to choose to not exterminate human beings.
Yeah, I'm going to choose good.
He had that option every day. Like every single day that guy woke up, it's not like he was obviously demonic, but it wasn't like he didn't have the option to not be demonic. At any point in time, he could have chosen a different path at any point in time, and he never went the other way.
But I think when you get so...
or it was just code that was that history needed to be had for our human evolution. We needed to experience that, and whether or not that's good or bad, it's to be determined. I think there's been several iterations of this over the course of time.
I don't think Hitler's unique. I think Hitler's was more the norm for old society,
And that wasn't that long ago.
it's the
but-
most recent
That's just the most
example,
recent
if you will.
example of horrific shit. Like if you go back and think of like Genghis Khan or someone like who's just literally murdering everyone that he comes in contact with.
Having sex with
Everyone.
everybody.
Yeah.
To the point where his DNA is in a lot of the current population,
Which is
in the world.
Nuts. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like
he was
just
basically the
latest
alpha dog.
iteration.
I mean, when
was
you look at
the
other
alpha
species, you go around and fuck what you want. You
Oh,
take
he was
what
the
you
alpha
want,
dog.
and you rip apart what you don't like.
Yeah, like and people whine about our society. The reality is like versus 1,000 years ago, like our society's dramatically
much
safer, more advanced. Like if you showed just our life right now to someone 1,000 years ago, they'd be like, "Oh my God, you guys are doing awesome." And we have what 1,000 times the population they had. Like, so yeah, we're not in a bad direction, but some of it's scary. And I always wonder, like, is it just our generation? We get scared of some of the weird stuff, but I feel like we're on a good path for a very long time, and we are getting almost over our skis a little bit on some stuff.
But aren't we always though?
Yeah,
I mean,
probably.
life is a constant balancing act. It's never going to be balanced, right? So we're constantly in this push and pull cycle to where at the time it might seem like everything is just so horrible, but in reality, if you look at history, it's never balanced. There's always a push and pull, and I think it's important to always have both sides that are pushing and pulling for what they believe. And eventually, just like the stock market, right? You get your highs and your lows, and eventually, there's a market
It
average.
should be a good trend.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And as long as you're letting everyone have that discussion.
I agree. Free speech is very important.
Yeah,
whether
as
you
long as
agree
everyone's
with it or
allowed
not.
to have their input, because that's the only way you're going to get the good ideas and get rid of some of the bad, is to have that discussion.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's important to fight for those kinds of things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, let people say what they want. If they want to sound like idiots, go for it.
Yeah.
I think about like the even with like the NRA, and some people are super against the NRA, but the NRA is some people say they're almost too bullheaded to where they won't even let an inch go. And
Well, the problem is you give an inch,
right. So
and you don't have to agree with. And the NRA is a good example of that, where they're just like, "Hey, it's this,
and
there's no exception," and but that's their stance.
right. And but there's what I'm saying. The point I'm trying to get to is there's a reason for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is because if you give too much, then it's like you're going to screw everything up,
Mm-hmm.
like in a horrible way. So, we do need those kinds of people who believe in those sorts of things, and then the opposite side as well, kind of pushing against it, and eventually things kind of get figured out. I mean, we've existed for as long as we have, initially with 2 babies, like we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, to
Yeah.
now for a reason.
Yeah.
And I don't think all technology or the future is going to be bad. I think it can go bad.
It could be scary.
It
Yeah.
could be scary, but is it scary because it's the unknown, right? It's that future unknown that we don't know what's going to happen. So
Just like anything, if it doesn't work out, it'll fall off. I mean, that's just how we evolve, right? So our technologies, there's going to be
Yeah.
like
Blu-ray
things
isn't a thing anymore.
that- yeah, but if it's heading like the human species down a path where it's like, well, we're actually degrading. There's degradation in this like strand of us. Like it'll fall off and we'll evolve, and then it's like, oh, but this actually works, just like medicine, just like anything else. So
But that's the scary thing about the AI, though, is that you're right. We've always bad ideas, these things, they have kind of, the market has essentially worked them out of reality because we're the most powerful thing in our world. We can control that. If the AI got to a point where it was more powerful than us, then it's whatever
Types
it
out.
wants. That is freaky. There is that point where, like, what if it got so dang smart that it could build things and do things and
yeah, because then it's
wage war? Like, what if?
then that's at the top of the food chain. Because right now
Yeah.
we're at
Yeah.
the top of the food chain.
Right.
And could
what
you
if
think
this
of
has already
something-
happened? Do you think that that's possible?
This
That
is Atlantis?
what do you mean?
You're saying like
What if
10,000 years ago? Like,
Yeah, a million years
We had-
ago.
we
what
had-
if we've already been to this point?
that would be
before?
sweet.
Like
Have you
this
guys
sort of
ever
thing has
heard-
already happened, do you
Yeah,
mean,
what's
in
it
history?
called? Have you guys ever heard of this? It's like the Dark Knight or something. It's basically a satellite that's going around Earth that we've seen a few times that we didn't put there, that no country is putting there.
No.
Yeah, we should have a separate.
You need to look into this and
there's all these theories like because space is so big and it's like
It's
oh
a
my God.
satellite, like an actual satellite, or
Yeah,
is it
so
just
we
like
can't
an
really
asteroid?
communicate with it because it's foreign. We
okay,
didn't put
you
it there.
need to, we need
Yeah,
to
we need
pause
to talk
this.
about that.
I think
Yeah,
this
I
could
might
a
be
whole-
calling it wrong,
but-
but nevertheless, like there's theories out there that like we've already been through all of this before, where like, and this is like a capsule that has our DNA and genetic code in it, and for this like circumstance, and it's like if something catastrophic were to happen, like AI or whatever it might be, it'll know to come back down and sprinkle genetic code and our DNA all over, so we can just start the whole process over again.
That's awesome. Except if it's up there, I can't imagine some like orbiting our Earth.
Yeah, and it goes the opposite way of all of our satellites.
All right, yeah, you
Wait,
gotta
hold on.
I don't know how I've never heard of this. And the other thing is, like, we are able to go into space at that level of space. Like, how has no one went up there and like tried to attach something to it?
No, that's what I mean. So
All right,
we
talk
can
about
have a
this.
separate topic, but just going back to like we evolved, but
No, it's
like,
very
this
possible.
planet's been here for so long. There's theories that like the Egyptians didn't even build the pyramids.
Yeah.
and like
What if
it
what
was
if,
something way
yeah.
before then? It
What
was
if
another.
all of a sudden, like today, we had a catastrophic with just nuclear war and we killed all the people, like, or at least the vast majority of the
Mm-hmm.
people, and we only left the mole people. The mole people under Vegas are the only things that are left. Like, they'd probably procreate enough to make a new world, but like in 2 million years, we wouldn't have any evidence that we ever existed. There might be
Correct.
some like rocks type structures like pyramids and things like that. Like those might survive, but like a lot of it wouldn't. Like there might be no record of us.
Yeah.
It's not in the Earth is 13 some odd billion years old. Like
Do you guys think trolls existed?
yeah,
Are like big humans?
yeah.
But the only thing is like the fossils. Like that's the only part that I get hung up on. Like if there was like a huge something, unless there was something so catastrophic.
But
that
what if
just
they were
turned
underwater?
Everything to dust.
What if it was a large flood? What if they're underwater? You might never find them. We don't
That's
do any
true.
excavation underwater. Of
But
any,
you'd
you wouldn't
think-
even know where to look.
with all that's happened with plate tectonics, something would have came about.
I mean, not necessarily.
Not if
though.
it's
Yeah,
deep
'cause
enough, and not if it's in the wrong spot, not if it's not where we're looking.
Even if our current human existence just, I don't know, got wiped off the face of the earth, I mean, they might not ever find us, right? We might eventually be that lost civilization that future living beings, whatever you want to call them, are looking for, and they find us, and they're like, "Hey, what the hell is this thing?"
We
Here's
find
like
new
a
dinosaurs every year. We find new species that we didn't know existed.
That's
It-
the thing, though. There's fossils. The fact that like large humans are like weird, different types.
Well, the question is then, where were they? If you went to the middle of the Atlantic and went on like the continental ridge and you did archaeological excavations, you might find something. They just don't do that because you can't really do it that deep underwater. But at
You
one
think
point in
vice
time, those
versa,
might have
like,
been
we find like fossils of like certain types of sea creatures, like in Death Valley.
Yeah.
Like at one point that was like underwater. You'd think the opposite would happen, or vice versa over the course of all this time. We would find like a big
Or maybe
giant
they-
or a
yeah.
troll.
or maybe they went off world. Maybe like 2
Yeah.
million years ago, they ended up like our Earth got shredded by a bunch of asteroids, and they had a spaceship and went off world, and they live somewhere else now.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how we've already done it.
The giant one is an interesting hypothesis. When
Oh,
you
yeah.
brought it up the other day when we were hanging out eating mushrooms, with the and I'm thinking about the pyramids mainly. It's like we're trying to figure out how they built it based on technology that we currently have, or that those little people might have had. But all it would take
What if they
was,
were
like, a
just really big?
What if there was a couple giants and they just like it would?
But the
'cause-
technology behind it, that's a whole nother topic too. But like Tesla was trying to like kind of take that same technology where it was like self-sustaining power that would be free and whatnot. But like if you get into those pyramids, the technology and the resources, the different types of rock that they use,
Yeah,
that
it's
was
nuts.
like nowhere nearby.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean
nuts.
the engineering and the like thought that went into it, and like most of them, we always think of them as like tombstone. Like yeah, they put King Tut in there or whatever. Most of that was bullshit. I'm like, in school, why do they teach us that all the time?
Because
don't
they got to
think
have
they-
an explanation
yeah.
for something. They're just trying to
Yeah.
tell you the answer to a question they don't have the answer to.
I know.
That's basically all school is. That's all science is. Is they have an answer to a lot of
Us
stuff.
proving
but they have an
ourselves
answer-
wrong over and over.
Yeah. How many times? Like, think of science 50 years ago. If you just took a science textbook from 50 years ago and plopped it on your desk right now, and you had me go through it, I'd be like, wrong, 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 and then that's the arrogance of us in our society is that we think in 50 years that they couldn't do the exact same thing to us because they can. Medicine in particular, I just think about all the procedures we used to do 15 years ago that are now completely debunked. They don't make sense. They don't work. They tried them. They don't work. Like science is always evolving. It should be, and we just always think we know the answer at this point in time. And the reality is we don't. We don't know anything.
I think it's so important. I've said this before, to be radically open-minded, right?
Yeah.
That's the best thing that you can do is just be open-minded, understand that, yeah, I'm going to get it wrong. We're going to get it wrong. Society's going to get it wrong. We got to be open to that because
And be
if-
open to the fact that you could be wrong.
Yes, because if you don't, if you're not open-minded about that, then we cannot progress. We just cannot progress.
No, if you're
period.
steadfast in believing something that is not correct, and you think anyone that brings new evidence it can't be correct, yeah, you can't improve. You can't make science better. You can't make new discoveries. You can't do these sorts of things because you're so pig-headed and arrogant about the fact that you think you're right, and you may not be. Like Galileo, the first person that thought of a heliocentric portion of the universe, like that dude was murdered. He was a heretic, and it's like, holy crap! Like,
Well, your boy Tesla.
there's so many people that just have like new thoughts, and they're just crapped on because it doesn't agree with the societal norms of today. And it's like,
yeah.
oh man, we got to quit
It was
doing
the
that.
basis of the Crusades as well.
Or what do you do
Catholics
with
were
any-
just murking people because
Right.
they're like, you don't believe in what we do. We got to get you.
Right.
We got to wipe you off the face of the
Right,
earth.
and
So-
maybe they had good ideas. Maybe they had a different idea.
And it's usually, a lot of times, how many good ideas inventors are squashed because, like, their idea will, like, somebody that has more money than them. So it's like, I got to eliminate you. You're my competition.
Yep.
That happens a lot, too.
Thanks for checking out this podcast. Please make sure to hit that thumbs up button before you go. If you want to watch us continue the conversation, then click on this video to your left next.